news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. President Trump doubling down on those new tariffs with Canada, escalating the fight over trade. The U.S. already put new 50% tariffs in place on hundreds of Canadian imports, which could cut off the world's biggest market for some Canadian enterprises. Well, now President Trump has posted on social media he's prepared to double the auto tariff on Canadian vehicles and parts starting January 1st. The current auto rate is 25%, but is applied only to non-U.S. content. Imported steel already faces a 50% charge. Bloomberg executive editor for Canada, Derek DeCloet, says talks are on pause for now.
There were quite intensive talks for a couple of weeks, really. Canada's minister responsible for U.S. trade, a guy named Dominic LeBlanc, has spent most of the past couple of weeks in Washington trying to hammer this out, but then it all fell apart on Friday night, and there's, as far as we know, nothing new scheduled.
Bloomberg executive editor for Canada, Derek DeCloet. Ontario Premier Doug Ford told the Associated Press that former President Ronald Reagan would be, quote, throwing up over Trump's trade policies. Ford threatened to cut off electricity and critical minerals to the United States if the Canada-U.S. trade fight worsens. The U.S. is set to impose a 7.5% tariff on Chinese goods over allegations of excess manufacturing capacity. This before next month's planned summit between Xi Jinping and President Trump. The move would restore Trump's duties on China to around 20%, a level that Beijing has said before is consistent with its trade truce with Washington. The details of what rates would be suspended and for how long is under negotiation. Beijing and Washington still looking to extend their so-called trade pact, which is set to expire November 10th. We're also waiting to hear from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is expected to announce a fresh set of economic measures against Iran to end the near 6-month war. The move may impact some of Iran's largest trading partners, including China, Turkey, and India, and will build on already extensive sanctions that have been in place for decades. Iran's economy is already under immense strain, with annual inflation above 80% and the currency weakened to an all-time low against the dollar. Tehran now vowing to retaliate against any country that supports Washington's plans. Crude oil moving lower, WTI closing in on $85 a barrel and Brent crude topping $92 a barrel. Nvidia warning of price hikes ahead of its earnings report. Bloomberg's Ed Ludlow.
The important bit to underscore is this is at the server level. This is not Nvidia going direct to the market and saying we're raising prices 15%. This is according to sources who have seen communications from those companies that assemble Nvidia-based servers and sell them to cloud computing operators or data center operators. And the bottleneck and pricing pressure is still high bandwidth memory.
The chip maker is telling its biggest customers to expect AI server price increases of more than 15% in 2027, as Nvidia is set to report its earnings on Wednesday. Nvidia shares are down about 2%, putting it on track for its longest losing streak since September of 2022. Wall Street is starting this week on a cautious note. Stocks are falling as traders wait for more details of U.S. sanctions against Iran, while gearing up for Nvidia's results and Fed Chair Kevin Warsh's speech later this week. We check markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is little changed on the downside. NASDAQ down 0.3%. The Dow up 0.3%. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.68%. The 2-year yield at 4.23%. And the 30-year yield at 5.21%. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index nearly 3% lower, led by Micron, which is now down more than 5%. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky marking 35 years of independence, commemorating the country's break from the Soviet Union in 1991. Zelensky delivered a message of defiance to Russia's Vladimir Putin.
Putin hopes that we are tired, but we know that he is mortal. He never understood us. Now he will not have time to. You wanted to take all our Ukraine, all our land. Instead, you lost your oil refineries, your fleet, your profit, your entire generation that you sent into the meat grinder.
The Trump family wants to launch a national bank and has just won approval to do it. The proposed bank would be called World Liberty Financial and plans to expand the use of its dollar-backed stablecoin and store the assets backing it in the bank. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency has approved 22 bank charter applications in the first 19 months of the president's second term, many going to fintech and digital asset firms. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.